The holidays are here, and the season of joy often brings a whirlwind of stress for many women, particularly when we're over 40. It's not just the endless to-do lists, the gift shopping, or the family gatherings. There's also the pressure of navigating holiday meals and treats. The tables are overflowing with rich, comforting dishes. Desserts call from every corner, and there's a constant stream of social events where it feels impossible to say no to the extra glass of wine or those last few pigs in blankets. At the same time, your body seems to have a mind of its own. What used to be easy, like bouncing back after a weekend of indulgence, now feels like an uphill battle. Hormonal changes, a slower metabolism, and a demanding schedule make the holidays feel like a balancing act that you didn't sign up for. But here's the good news. You can enjoy the holidays, savor the foods you love, and take care of your body, all without feeling like you're missing out. So let's dive into how to make this season joyful, guilt-free, and healthy for you. So the holidays are tricky, right? We have so much rich food, family traditions, Christmas parties, work Christmas parties, meeting up with friends. It always seems to be the time that we reconnect with people. And I don't know about you, but my diary is jam-packed with people that I haven't seen since last Christmas. It's one of those things. It's a time when we reconnect, and we often tend to do that over food and drinks. So it can be so difficult to really navigate this time and get through it without undoing all your hard work and feeling like you're setting yourself back. And I know that the temptation can be that you're not going to start focusing on yourself until January, or you're going to kind of abandon all the good things that you've been doing until January, and we can just kind of let it all go. But I really want to urge you to not do this. I know it can feel like an extra thing to think about, worrying about your nutrition or your self-care during this time. But it is such a big error to let it all go and just leave it until January. You know, there's a chance that in January you may not be able to get started with your wellness journey or continue with your wellness journey. Things might come up, things that are unexpected happen all the time. And, you know, we can't guarantee that we are going to be able to dedicate the time and the energy in January. And if you find that you regularly start over in January, every January is new year, new me, then it's probably not working for you. And the thing is, in January, there's a lot of new year energy, and that can make us feel ultra motivated. So it can seem like it is a good time to start. But the problem is, you're actually more likely to start things, implement habits that you're not going to be able to keep going with because your level of motivation is extra high. And actually, starting in December is elite, because the likelihood is that your motivation is at an all-time low. So anything that you can achieve now, you're going to be able to keep going with that in the long term. So making a little change now, you're going to be able to keep up with that in January for sure, when you've got that extra motivation from that new year energy. And it's important to remember that it's not just your motivation that you're battling with or the hecticness of the holiday period. It's also hormones and how things change after 40. And not that that's going to be necessarily any different in January, But if we do a lot of overindulgence in December and we overdo the alcohol, perhaps we don't get quite enough sleep, quite enough downtime, rest and recovery, then actually our hormones are going to be in a worse state come January. And it's going to be more difficult to make healthy changes because you're going to be battling the perimenopausal, menopausal symptoms, because you're going to be battling fatigue. You're going to have a greater withdrawal from sugar and alcohol and all the things that we overdo at this time of year. So I've got some strategies for you to help you navigate this season without really having to put in a huge amount of time and effort. Because let's face it, you've got a million things on your to-do list, and I'm sure you can't be dealing with adding in a whole new regime. In fact, I never recommend doing that, but especially not right now. So the first thing to do is just slow down. It's a hectic time. We do everything at 100 miles per hour. We're multitasking to the max. And one of the side effects of that can mean that we are eating quickly. We are rushing our food. We're not chewing properly. And that's a problem. And I know this is information that you hear time and time again, but there is a good reason for it. It's not simply a case of the quicker we eat, the more we eat. That is a factor, but it impacts us in multiple ways. When we eat quickly, first of all, we don't digest our food so well. When we chew our food, we actually mix the food with our saliva, and our saliva contains enzymes that starts the digestion process. It starts to break down the starches in our food. And of course, chewing manually breaks down food as well. So the more we do that, the more chewing we do, the more saliva that's mixed with the food, the easier it's going to be on our digestive system, the better job our stomach's going to do, and our digestive juices and acids are going to do with breaking down that food. And that means that we get more nutrients out of the food we eat, and we get less bloating as well. When we overeat, or when we don't chew our food so well and we are rushing our food, we also swallow a lot of air, and the food doesn't get broken down so well. So we can result with a lot of swallowed air, but also gas production from the poorly broken down food. And so bloating is something that can be a side effect of this. So a super easy way to minimize bloating is to focus on chewing food thoroughly. Not only are you going to feel more comfortable digestion-wise, but at the same time, you're going to eat your food more slowly. And that means that your brain is going to have a better chance of getting that signal that you've actually had a meal. You've actually consumed some food, and therefore you don't need to keep eating and eating. The faster we eat, the more likely it is that we're going to have finished the food around us before our brain has got that fullness signal, and so it's much more likely that we're going to overeat. And on a similar theme, sitting down at the table and focusing on your food rather than eating whilst watching television or scrolling on your phone is also really important. And again, it's all about our bodies recognizing that we've actually had a meal. When we eat in a distracted way or on the go, when we're sitting at our desk, or if we're rushing around and we're just popping things in our mouth as and when we get a moment, our body doesn't get the opportunity to recognize that we've actually had a meal, and we actually are more likely to eat more later in the day. There's been studies on this that prove that sitting down and eating a meal and putting your attention on that meal as much as you can, as well as chewing thoroughly and taking our time over the food, focusing on savoring the flavors, it actually helps us to eat less overall. Now, I don't know about you, but over the Christmas period, I find that I get lots of foods placed in front of me or offered to me that I don't actually necessarily love. But there are plenty of foods that I do love that are festive. So it's important to remind ourselves to say no to the foods that we don't actually love, because it's all too easy to just have a little bit of this, have a little bit of that, and kind of nibble on all these festive foods throughout the day. And before we know it, we've eaten the equivalent of several meals worth of food just in nibbles. And then we might have our normal meals on top of that. So making sure that we don't restrict ourselves too much. We don't say that we're not going to have these foods, but instead just settling for the foods that we really love and enjoy rather than eating for the sake of it. I know it's a really simple recommendation, but it's something that I have to remind myself of as well. I can't tell you how often I get a quality street offered to me and I eat it and I don't even really like it. There's other things that I would much rather eat. So I always have to remind myself, you don't really like these. Don't just eat it because your brain's telling you that it fancies a bit of sugar. Get that sugar in a form that you're actually going to really enjoy, and then savor it. Taste it, enjoy the flavors, enjoy the smells, and then you're going to feel much more satisfied from that food, and you're much less likely to eat 10 of them and more likely to just have 1 or 2 of them. Now, of course, you've got the old visual tricks of things like using a small plate, and this really does work, particularly when we are perhaps walking up to a buffet that's full of delicious treats. And it's very easy to overfill your plate, and it's so easy to go back for seconds as well. So picking up the smaller plate will help to prevent you overeating. And also making sure that we put on our plate first the things that we know we need. So choose the proteins, choose the vegetables, the things that are going to be rich in fiber and protein or beneficial fats. These are the things that are going to fill us up and help us to feel satisfied. Then add the other bits that you might fancy next to that, okay? So eat the protein and those veggies first, and then that's when you can think about having some of these festive foods, because the festive foods, they tend to be very processed. They tend to be much higher in refined carbohydrates, and they tend to have that magical combination of fats and carbs, which are so moreish and so addictive, and they are so easy to overeat. So if we start with our protein and fiber, then it's much less likely that we're going to overindulge on those foods, because our brain is going to get that fullness signal first. And when we have those protein and fiber rich foods, we actually take a while to digest those foods. So it helps to keep our blood sugars steady as well. And that's so important, because when we eat meals that are higher in refined carbohydrates and sugars, and they are lacking in protein and fiber, we tend to have a blood sugar spike after that meal. And then that is always followed by a blood sugar crash. And that's when we get snacky, that's when we get cravings for more of those refined foods, those carby foods, those crisps, those sausage rolls, those sweets, the chocolates, all those things that we find around the holidays. So we can minimize our cravings for those things, not by eliminating them altogether, but instead being really savvy with how we put together our meals in the first place. Now, it's so important to remember to stay hydrated throughout the holidays. And again, it's so simple, it's so boring, but it is so important. The basics really do make a big difference, and it is true, we can mistake our thirst for hunger because there's water in food. So if we are thirsty, it's very easy for us to just pick up food and eat it. Our body can give us cravings for food to help us get water in some way or another. But actually making sure that we stay hydrated, trying to have a big glass of water when we wake up in the morning, trying to have regular drinks of water throughout the day is going to help you to also feel fuller for longer and to feel better as well. You know, it's important for our energy levels to keep our bowels moving, which again, our bowels can very much suffer with all the rich food, with all the fiber poor food through the holidays. So staying hydrated is going to be beneficial for all those areas. And you might want to think about alternating your alcoholic drinks with water or even mocktails so that we can partly stay hydrated, but also it will help to reduce the intake of those empty calories. You know that I don't like to talk about calories too much, but when it comes to liquids, it's so easy to just really rack up the calories, particularly when it comes to alcohol or even mocktails. So being a little bit careful about what we're consuming when it comes to drinks is going to help to mitigate the impact of these holiday indulgences. All right, the first part of this episode could sound overwhelming, but hear me out. You can stay present in the holiday season while you're also staying present for yourself. The holiday season, it can be truly overwhelming, especially for mums who take care of the family, decide on what things to buy and prep for the celebration. And sometimes this can lead to keeping you away from your self-care or your weight loss goals. And I'm here to tell you that starting to take care of yourself and achieving your weight loss goals doesn't have to take long. You can start as early as now, and I'm very confident that my team and I can help you out with that. If you book a call using this link, bit.ly/TMP breakthrough, or you can find that link in the show notes. My team and I will make sure to help you minimize your overwhelm this holiday season and make sure that you'll be on track with your weight loss goals. You can start regaining your confidence back, just like how Yoda did when she shed 3 inches of her bloated belly in just 7 days. So we did it for Yoda, and we can do it for you too. So go ahead and book your call now, bit.ly/TMP breakthrough. Once you're done booking, come back to this episode so that we can continue our conversation. Okay, let's talk a little bit about our emotional well-being and our mindset, because I think it's so easy to get wrapped up in feeling guilty about having indulgences over the holiday season. We can feel really bad about ourselves because we've, been out for drinks a couple of times this week, or because we've had a few extra mince pies, or maybe because we didn't plan so well this week and we ended up just snacking on some of the bits that you'd bought in for Christmas. Now, the guilt isn't going to help you at all, okay? Feeling guilty and beating ourselves up about what we've eaten or what we have or haven't done doesn't get us anywhere. It doesn't achieve anything. All it does is makes us feel worse about ourselves and makes us even more likely to reach for those comforting foods to self-soothe. So really practicing giving yourself grace is one of the best things that you can do if you are someone who is prone to emotional eating or getting stuck in that cycle of guilt and binging. So practice giving yourself some grace. And like I say, practice is something that takes practice. Initially, you're going to eat that mince pie and then you're going to think, why did I do that? I'm such an idiot. I've got such poor willpower. Why am I not able to stick to my goals? And you might think those things, and that's okay too. But we want to practice stopping ourselves as soon as we recognize this language, as soon as we recognize this pattern, and actually saying to ourselves, okay, that happened. It doesn't matter. Done now. Let's move on. How can I put into place some steps so that I'm less likely to be in a situation where I'm going to be reaching for those foods as a comfort in future, or where I'm going to be less likely to have poor control around those foods in future. And, so often it comes down to planning, it comes down to making sure we've got healthy snacks around us. And again, the things that I spoke about earlier, making sure that we are getting that protein and fiber into our meals and staying hydrated. It makes such a difference with keeping us on track. If you are more likely to indulge after a stressful day or an emotional conversation or something like that, then we need to find other ways to support our self-care. We need to find other ways to regulate our emotions and relieve that stress and relieve those emotions. And that can take many forms. One of my favorite ways is journaling, because it just helps you to kind of calm your mind and put things into a place where you feel like it's more organized and not just swirling around your head. That might be what works for you. Mindfulness might work better. Meditation might work better. Talking with a friend might work better. So these are all things that you could do to help release some of these emotions and feelings and stresses, and also to help you to plan. I often find that getting a good plan in place for the week, whether that's to do with my nutrition or whether it's to do with work or whatever it might be, maybe it's with planning things around the Christmas period. For me, a good plan often starts with a little bit of journaling, just to help get my mind in a good space and help me to think about what my priorities are and what's actually important to me. Now, along with this comes setting realistic expectations. You've got to look at what you've got going on, what you've got coming up, and what's happened previously to set realistic expectations for yourself. Setting yourself the goal to lose half a stone in December may not be realistic for you. It might be, depending on who you are and how motivated you are and what your priorities are. But the likelihood is that it probably isn't going to be realistic. Maybe a realistic expectation is that you're going to maintain. Maybe a realistic expectation is that you're going to gain a pound or two. Having realistic expectations can help to prevent us from setting ourselves up for failure, because when we have unrealistic expectations, we do set ourselves up for failure, and then that leads us to feeling like we are useless, like we can't achieve anything. It really knocks our self-belief, and then that makes it even less likely that we're going to be successful in future, because we have to have that self-belief that we are capable, that we are able to achieve these things for ourselves. So taking steps to avoid setting yourself up for failure is doing yourself a favor in future, because you're not knocking down your self-belief in the future. It's also really important to allow yourself to enjoy the moment. So often the holidays can feel like it's all about food, but really what it's about is connection. It's about connecting with people, and there's so many lovely ways that you connect with people, whether that is in person meeting up, maybe it's chatting over the phone, maybe it's sending voice notes to people. And I was actually reading something the other day that said that sending voice notes or making phone calls is actually better for us than texting, because when we hear our loved one or our friend's voice, it actually releases oxytocin. And oxytocin is something that's very de-stressing and anti-inflammatory and very, very good for us. So that's one way that you can build a bit more meaning into this holiday season. You could send some voice notes to people that you've not connected with for a while, and hopefully they'll send some voice notes back, which will give you that feeling of joy and get you in that festive mood. Now, it doesn't have to be that the season is all about food, but at the same time, we can incorporate food into the occasions, into our memories, and not have it completely throw us off track. So there are some common foods that we might find around the buffet table, or things that might be part of main meals, that can be really good to focus on, to prioritize over and above some of the less helpful foods. So things like prawn cocktail, it's a really common starter, and prawns, I often see them on the buffet table at Christmas. So these are ones that They're protein packed and they're a good way to either start your meal or to incorporate into the buffet to ensure you're getting some protein on your plate. Smoked salmon is another one that's often rolled out. And again, rich in protein, rich in omega-3s. You're going to get some good nutrition in there to incorporate that in those meals. And often there are plenty of chopped carrots and celery and peppers that you can dip into things like hummus, or you can have them with things like tahini. You can enjoy them with cheese. There's often a cheese board about, so if you're okay with dairy, then a little bit of cheese can be a good way of filling you up and enjoying a little bit of extra flavour in your meal. And then there's also some really easy ways to incorporate some low sugar desserts. Fruit, of course, is one of the easiest ways to get some good nutrition in without loads of sugar. And that could be in the form of things like fruit skewers. It could be something like a fruit salad where we're not adding lots of syrup in there. It could be things like dark chocolate dipped strawberries, or even like a dark chocolate fondue with the fruit. And dark chocolate itself is something that you can have either as it is. You could have some dark chocolate Brazil, some dark chocolate dates, drizzle it over anything, and you've got yourself a dessert basically. Ultimately, there's so many things that we can add to the table during the holidays, things that are packed with nutrition. And it just takes a little bit of planning and a little bit of savvy to ensure that we have them there. You know, if you're going to someone else's and you're able to bring a dish with you, make sure that you're bringing something that is nutrient packed so that you've got a good option to add to your plate. If you've made it this far into the episode, it's clear that you're feeling what I'm saying. And I want you to know that this message is exactly for you. You are hearing this because it's time for you to take that next step forward, the next step towards the version of yourself that is vibrant, confident, and ready to thrive even during the holiday season. And I get it, so often women like you end up putting everyone else first, and in the process you lose sight of yourself. You take care of the family, you plan the celebrations, and you make sure that everyone else is happy. But in doing so, you may be putting your own well-being on the back burner. But here's the truth, when you prioritize your own health and happiness, you become the best version of yourself for everyone around you. The people you love, the moments you cherish, they all become even more meaningful when you're at your best. So I'm going to encourage you, I'm going to urge you to take this opportunity now. Book a call with me and my team today. Go to bit.ly/TMP breakthrough now, and that link is in the show notes too. This isn't just about weight loss, it's about regaining your vibrant self, your confidence, and your sense of balance. You deserve this. You deserve to feel like you again, and I'm here to make sure it happens. Don't delay your own transformation any longer. Let's make sure that the rest of this holiday season is full of joy, peace, and progress towards the best version of you. Click the link in the show notes and let's get started. Your future self will thank you for it.